Welcome back to the Reboot Era. Today's conversation is one that feels especially relevant right now. My guest is Quentin Cobb, creative director and CEO of Ironroot Games, and someone who spent 17 years in the gaming industry working for major studios like Sony, Bethesda, and Microsoft. But this episode isn't just about game development. It's about what happens when your career gets flipped upside down overnight. Back in July 2025, Quentin was actually part of a massive layoff impacting thousands of employees. What followed wasn't a clean, inspirational jump into entrepreneurship. It was frustration, identity loss, hard conversations, burnout, emotional moments, and ultimately a choice to build something deeply personal. In this episode, we talk about why identity gets so wrapped up in work, the emotional toll of starting something from scratch, what burnout taught him about balance, and how to prepare for a layoff before it ever happens. This episode is honest, emotional, and it's practical. If you've ever been laid off, feared a layoff, or wondered whether you could build something of your own, this one might be for you. Let's get into it. If you're anything like me and you're tired of spending 20 or 30 minutes filling out an application only for it to go to the reject pile, or even using the easy apply button on LinkedIn only for your application to never be seen, well, look no further. JobHire.ai offers you a really cool opportunity where it applies to jobs on your behalf. And if you don't get an interview in the first 15 days, you'll get your money back. Now with this, you can sign up, put in some of your information, and you don't have to constantly repeat that process. You do it one time, you set it, you forget it, and the interviews roll into your inbox. Sign up today. Use my code DRAY30, DRAY30 for 30% off.
Hi, I'm Quentin Cobb. I am the creative director and CEO of Ironroot Games. And I'm a game designer, combat designer by trade, but I don't do a whole lot of that nowadays. My days are mostly spent on the business side, but there you go.
I love that. You know, Quentin is such an interesting name. I've only ever met like one or two people named Quentin, and one of them is actually from my previous time at CrowdStrike, and he was like one of my favorite engineers to work with. So when I saw your name on LinkedIn, I was like, I love this.
Cool. Yeah. There's a few Quentins I've seen on LinkedIn, and I always immediately friend them. It's like, Quentins unite.
You have to. It's a cool name. I haven't met many other Dreys, but I'm hoping that changes one day and I get a bunch of Dreys so we can be like, you know, I don't know, Dre 3000, like 3,000 of us.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so how did you meet me? How did we meet each other? Because the story is a little interesting. I have been interviewing a lot of people, but we just kind of connected on LinkedIn, right?
Well, I listened to your podcast. So, I was laid off in July, and around August, I think I started listening to your podcast. And then you had Nellie Hughes, who's a friend of mine, on an episode. And I got very excited because she's amazing. And that episode was incredible. And so I think I started following you and connected with you on LinkedIn. And then, when I saw that you were bringing the show back, I was like, hey, I would love to chat with you.
Yeah, Nellie is really great. And we had like a law of relativity thing. So at the end of the episode, which I don't think I aired this piece, but she was like, I was like looking at our LinkedIn connections and I said, hey, you know someone that like is my dog's girlfriend's parent. So, you know, our dogs grew up together. And she was like, who? And I was like, his name's John. And she's like, oh my gosh, JT, JP, JT. And I was like, I don't know. I call him John. I have no idea. And she was like, no, literally we worked together for like ever. And he's amazing. So I texted him instantly and she said something funny but provocative to say, like a mean slur. And she was like, text him this. He'll know it's from me. And I did. And he's like, how do you know Nellie? And I was like, how did you know it's from Nellie? So
wow,
it was a crazy time, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nellie is, as they say, a real one. Nellie's amazing. One of my favorite people.
And honestly, if I didn't do this, I don't think I ever would have run into her, even though we probably lived within, honestly, like 10 miles of each other at one point. So it's crazy how these things work. But with that, where are you located?
I'm in San Diego, California.
Okay. And you worked with Nellie in person, or did you work somewhere else?
So my connection with Nellie is through an old coworker of mine at ZeniMax. Her name's Connie, who worked with Nellie at, I think, a few studios before and would always tell me this amazing, she's like a game designer turned executive, telling me about Nelly, how incredible she is. And I sort of heard stories and then eventually just connected with her on LinkedIn and started chatting with her there. So I've never met her in person. Hopefully one day.
Yeah, same. But this episode's not about Nelly. I appreciate you sharing that. I want to hear more about what you're doing since your layoff.
Okay. Yeah. So our project was shut down back on July 2nd, which was a pretty infamous day, July 2nd, 2025. Microsoft decided to lay off 9,000 people on that day. And my team there's a lot of people on the team that I was on, all gone, all in one day gone. And so after that, I did the usual thing of interviewing, right? Interviewing at AAA studios at a couple different places and wasn't getting any luck and kind of having a tough time. And decided, why don't I just do my own thing? Why don't I make my own game? I've been in the industry now 17 years and felt like if other people can make a game with friends, why can't I? So back in September, I started really thinking about it and putting together the idea. In October of 2025 is when things really kicked off, and I started to gather friends and started to really solidify the core concept and got a lawyer, got an LLC, started doing the whole thing and really making a company and pushing the project forward. And here we are. We're getting closer and closer to kind of making it a reality and still trying to make the gameplay demo and do all that stuff kind of early days. But, yeah, I kind of look back, without that layoff, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I would be working on somebody else's game, right? And now because of that, I'm making my own game, which is incredible and amazing. And I wouldn't go back at this point. Honestly, I wouldn't go back to working for someone else. Doing my own thing and having my own company and making my own game is such an incredible experience and a completely new thing for me that I absolutely love. So here we are.
I have questions about that, of course, but before I get to those questions, a few things. So you did work at Microsoft. That's where you got laid off from.
I was a company owned by Microsoft. So I was part of ZeniMax Online Studios, which was a part of Bethesda, which in 2020 got purchased by Microsoft.
Okay, got it. So you weren't like walking around Microsoft Studios, but you were part of the email. Like, did you have an at Microsoft, or did they keep it to the company name for your email?
No, still ZeniMax Online. Yeah, because Bethesda is a massive company, so they had their own thing, right? And then Microsoft swallowed them up, but kept them fairly autonomous.
Yeah. Okay. And you were able to stay in San Diego for all of this?
Yeah. So I joined at the very tail end of 2020, right, when everyone was remote. And so I got to stay in San Diego, even though ZeniMax is located in Maryland. And that really, I started the sort of San Diego satellite studio at the time with a couple other friends. And then after that, they started kind of having an Austin satellite and Seattle satellite and, started really expanding the team remotely. And so it was great. I was able to stay here and do everything from literally this desk is where I worked.
So I love that. Maryland is cool, but I'm glad you get to stay in San Diego. Much cooler. Yes. One thing a lot of people talk about when they tell their story is they jump from, I got laid off, to I decided to start this thing. But they don't talk about is like, how did you get to what did you do in order to start it? And the component of it probably took some money, right? There's probably a financial aspect. And then it also probably took some connections. You said you had friends, but yes. Were there days where you were pounding your head against the wall being like, I should probably just go back to corporate America. This is terrible. I can't do this. Could you share some of that on the journey?
Yeah, it's certainly not all sunshine and rainbows. That's for sure. Yeah. So early on, like I said, I've been in the industry 17 years. So I have a gigantic network of friends, and all of the people that I worked with at ZeniMax were all laid off with me, right? So I had this kind of ready-made team available to try stuff out. So I just started talking to people that I had just worked with months ago about doing a new thing, and they were game mostly. And so putting together the team was easy. That was extremely easy. And so we're making the game on Unreal, which is great because you don't have to pay anything up front. You can just download it, start making the game. As you progress into development, that's when you start having to deal with Epic and paying fees and royalties and all that. But early development, you get to just do your thing without paying for an engine. So the sort of early upfront costs were pretty low. It was, paying for the LLC, started paying some lawyers, right? There's a little bit of fees there, but really not a huge investment for me. So that was great. And gathering the team was fairly simple. And I think really for me, I had interviewed at a few different AAA studios and not gotten jobs. And it was frustrating. And trying to get a remote job, you're competing with almost the entire world, right? And that is very challenging. No matter how experienced or how incredible you are, you're going against the best of the best. And so it was very tough and pretty demoralizing, going for roles sometimes that felt a little bit beneath me, and I should get this, right? This is easy. This is a contract job I could have done 10 years ago, and getting past. So that frustration really led to me feeling like this is not working. I need to do something else. And while that was going on, I was already experimenting in Unreal with a couple of friends, just working on our skills, right? Because so many games and teams use Unreal Engine to make their game. It's like, let's sharpen our skills on Unreal. So if we do go to a studio using Unreal, we can, have better skills at that. So what we were already playing around in Unreal, and that one thing led to another of realizing we can just make our own game. So that was kind of the start of it. And then some of the difficult parts, yeah. In December, which was just last month, December was a difficult month. December, I really was working a ton, trying to lift a whole company off the ground, right? To start an entire company and create a new IP from scratch was just really, is still very, very difficult. And I'm, sitting at the head. I'm the lead creative, the main combat designer, the CEO, the dad of the team, right? And that is a lot. And so really, in the couple of weeks during December was certainly a breaking point, and it was tough. And I had some people leave the team, had some really difficult conversations with direction and creative differences. And it was, though a couple moments that it was hard to, it's pretty hard. These are friends that I care about, and not have them work with us is difficult. We're all still pals, we're all still friends and still cool, but it's hard. It's difficult to try to go into business with friends of yours that then don't work out, and you want to remain friends and not take things personal, which is tough. So there was definitely moments that I clearly.
Yeah. With, I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope, that you were able to keep those friendships. For someone who listens to this, who might say, hey, I want to try something, and they're going through that hard spot right now. What did you tell yourself? What did you read? What did you listen to that kept you going, being like, this is the right thing to do? Or at least I want to try this and I want to keep pushing forward.
I think for me, what I did was listen to smarter people than me. I had many people telling me the same thing, right? Telling me I was working too hard, to slow down, to evaluate what I was doing and really make sure that the plan that I had put forward was going to be sustainable and was going to be healthy for me and for the team and be successful. And I was really laser focused on a particular plan that was not sustainable and was very destructive because it was so intense. And the key was really listening. And especially when multiple people are telling you the same thing, you better listen, right? And so really getting out of my head and allowing people to give me guidance and advice that I trust, and I know that they were coming from a good place. And then sitting back and saying, okay, I got to make adjustments. I got to make changes. This is really hard. And leaning on other teammates, leaning on other friends for, advice of how to figure things out. So I think if you're able to surround yourself with smart people and that have different perspectives that can really help guide the project or whatever you're working on into a better place, I would say really listen to them. And I don't give a shout out, but in that situation, it was all women. It was all women giving me the same advice and good advice. It was my wife, my mom, multiple team members, all incredibly supportive and caring women that helped me figure out how to, change course and be better. So also my advice would be to surround yourself with great women that can help you in your business, because I think they can often be undervalued, but can provide amazing support and leadership. And that's what I've leaned on. And that's what has been really helpful.
That's really cool. And I like how you brought it back to, you're right, that support network that can be so important. I hope anyone who heard that listens to that, right? Support yourself, make sure you're around the right people, listen to the feedback that you get. I think it's also important. Now, that's about building a company, right? That's about what you did when times got tough to build and continue building what you're building currently. But what about those moments in between getting laid off and deciding, I'm going to start this thing? How did you keep going there? How did you support yourself there? Because I think some of my audience is going to listen to that piece too and be like, how do I pick myself up every day after a layoff when my identity feels like it's completely destroyed?
This is a good question. For me, okay, and I've talked about this a lot with friends. And for me, I've worked in the corporate world in big, giant, I work for Sony, work for Microsoft, big, giant companies. And in those big AAA studios, and I'm sure it's the same in big tech firms, you get very hyper specialized typically, right? And you really focus on one small thing, and you get kind of told, do this one job. Don't think about these other things. Don't move outside of this box. And your sort of creativity, especially if you're working in a creative field like video games, you want to express yourself. You want to have input in other parts of the game or other parts of the project. But typically in those big studios, you're told, no, stay here, work in this little tiny box. And so for me, personally, breaking out of that and thinking about what is the game, what is the project that I want to make? And I poured myself into it. And I really tried to tap into my passion and what was interesting to me, and what really going back to why I got into the industry in the first place. I really tried to tap into that, thinking about my first job. I was a QA tester for Activision, why I got into video games, right? What was exciting to me, what was interesting, and really tried to relight that fire of why I'm here in the first place. And what is it about video games? What is it about game development that I wake up in the morning that I love? And I focused on that. And I focused on, creating a project and creating art that I could be proud of. I thought about this, I thought about creating a game that my kids would play, that my parents would play, that my wife would be proud of. Sorry, it's real. And that's what drove me. That's what kept me going, is thinking about the pure form of, it's silly to say, video game development, video game art. I think a lot of that has been lost over the last few decades of being corporatized and really money driven, right? And the lost art of video game as expression, right? As an art form, which I think is, sometimes, lost in these big companies, and what I use as fuel of wanting to create something that is actually special for me and that I can be proud of and other people can be proud of. So that's what I focused on.
You get so real and so into it, and the emotions are here. So I appreciate you bringing the emotions today. So I think it's fun, and my questions are sporadic, but
okay,
on a happier note, hopefully.
Okay.
You've talked now about getting through the hard time of, trying to come up with a company and push it forward and have hard conversations. You've talked about the tough part of moving forward after a layoff and like finding that identity again and pushing forward there. A lot of people are like, do I cancel the trip? Do I stop living my life? Do I stop hanging out with friends? And they kind of self-isolate. Could you share a little bit about how you navigated that? You sound like you have a wife. You potentially have some kids, maybe some parents that are still alive. Did you still travel? Did you go to Mexico? Did you go to Germany? Did you just go down the street to the park? Like, what did you do before you really committed to the developing a business and a game? And even while you're developing this, are you still taking trips? Are you still living life, so to speak?
I like this question, Dre. This is a really good question because I struggle with this. After the layoffs, I had a lot of free time. So I was, we didn't know when, we had a nice severance. So we had some money, but we didn't know how long it would last. So my wife and I have 2 kids, we immediately tightened the belt, really, we canceled trips and we, started trying to save as much as possible, just from a practical standpoint. But I still went out. I still, had lunch with my wife. I still, did the kind of normal family stuff, and try to just have some normalcy while I was searching for a job and interviewing and doing all of that. Once I made the decision to create a company and make my own game, oh man, I laser focused. And I think it was a mistake, really looking back on it. And that's kind of what led to that December crash out, you could say. And I isolated and I went way too hard, right? Way too hard, working nonstop, trying to make it happen, thinking this is how it has to be done, sacrificing everything else, sacrificing time with my family and friends and all of that, and thinking the business and this company is all that matters. And it's not. And I think I would recommend people, as much as you want, especially early on and you're an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, whatever it is, you want to pour everything you have into it. You still need to have a life. You still need to have your friendships and family and go to Mexico and go to the park and do other things. You still need that. So I would encourage people not to lose sight of it, because I did that at a detriment, right? And I'm kind of coming out of that a bit now in January and really trying to get outside more. I've been going to social events. I've been going to, there's some meetups that happen in San Diego. I went and had lunch with some ex-Cinemax friends this last Saturday in Irvine. So I've been getting out and trying to just take some time away from work, because if I'm here, I'm working, right? That's all I do. And so getting outside and living your life and keeping those connections and being a human outside of your business, I think is vital. Is vital because you get lost. You get lost in every little detail, wanting to make everything perfect. And I definitely did that for a few months. And it's kind of, it can really suck you in, because you like you said, you wrap your identity in work. And if you start your own business, that is you, right? That's your name. I'm the CEO. I'm it. And so you want to pour everything you have into making sure that's successful. And while I think, like, logically that makes sense. Oh, if I work as hard as I can, it'll be successful. But you still need to be a human. You still need to get outside and enjoy life, because it can really, like I said, be detrimental to your mental health for sure. And I've experienced that. So it's fun. It's great to talk to you now, because I'm at that point of trying to find balance,
I think there's no better time than right now to talk about work-life balance, because, growing up, the last 10 years of my career, all I've been told is like, it's 40 hours a week, but when you get there, it's really 60, and work-life balance, but you can't leave before 5 and your boss is going to judge you. And that's not how you move up, right? You get told all those things. You see it real time. So how do you kind of determine what you're going to give your free time to in this given moment, whether it's during the layoff or building a business? Because you might be a successful CEO. There might be other people out there starting a small business that's manufacturing, right, in their garage on the weekends. How do you determine like when to go out with friends versus when to stay in and actually push through and grind?
It's another great question. Boy, really good question. For me, it's not necessarily a formula. It's a feeling, right? It's, I think you start to feel frustrated. You start to really, I think, I have a little bit of ADHD, or my wife would say that I have ADHD. And I think it's when I start to really get distracted, right? If I'm working, and I keep tabbing over to different tabs, I keep doing other things other than work. That's when I know, like, okay, I think I'm done here and I need to disengage. So I think, yeah, for me, when I feel the concentration starting to slip, I'll to disengage. One of the other things that I like to do is, because I have so many different tasks to work on, if I'm feeling like that, I'll work on something fun, right? So for instance, I like to cut trailers or kind of play around with music. And so I'll do that, right? Not a priority, not an important thing to do right now, but it's fun. And so I'll go and do like a low priority fun task that just gets that dopamine, right? And is kind of gives me a constructive distraction to then go back to contracts or whatever boring, admin thing I have to do. So I think you have to listen to yourself and be kind and patient with yourself and give yourself some grace. And if you feel like you're sort of slipping into a frustration, and for me, distraction, that feels like a good time to take a break and go hug your kids.
If you have them. If not, hug your animals.
If you have, or your
hug
doggy.
yourself or your friends, whoever you can, whatever you can, go hug them. I think that's great advice. Sharing a little bit about myself, I recently had an article that dropped in Business Insider, which was cool. It wasn't on my bingo card in 2026. I wasn't shooting for that. So that was a cool opportunity.
Amazing. Yes.
I had a chance to send some audio clips over for an NPR segment of answering some questions, which I don't think it's come out yet, but that was also pretty cool. And I just recently, like yesterday, submitted an advice piece around layoffs and, using my own voice and my own words, right? Not using AI. For the first time, I don't think I've written a paper without using AI since I was at Amazon, maybe 7 years ago. And it was interesting. It was cool to be like, these are my words, but I'm not going to use something to like make them better. I'm just going to speak how I speak and write how I speak as well. And I guess, off of that, I've been thinking about advice that we give lately. And so you've seen when this episode come out, it'll probably be like a few weeks after the whole Amazon and Home Depot big announcement of their layoffs, but they just laid off 16,000 people, right? And it was their second wave, and it's crazy. And I'm waiting for the number to drop of how many Seattleites are really impacted by that. Cause I think the first round with 14,000 was about like 2,200 employees that were located in the Seattle area. But they also closed Amazon Fresh this time, right? So they've decided to dismantle that, which is insane. But what advice would you give to someone who is just getting that? It's going to be a twofold. Just like you've been impacted by a layoff, right? What are those first things that you would advise? And then also, if you were to tell people, knowing what you know now, what things should they keep in mind? What advice do you have for them to prepare for that kind of unexpected layoff?
I'm going to get emotional here. These are really good questions, boy. And I think many of your guests have talked about this, and I would agree, is it's so hard. Don't take the layoff personal, right? It's not you. It's not the quality of your work or, your own self-worth. It's a number. It's stockholders. It's whatever, right? It's some unknown thing that has nothing to do with you personally. So I think the very first thing to do is try not to feel like a failure. And I think, right away after, because the layoff last year was my first. I've been in a company that other people were laid off, but I wasn't a part of it. So that was my first time. And it was hard. It's really hard. It's hard. Yeah. Like I said, not to take it personal. And I think reaching out to other people, reaching out to friends for support after a layoff. I have to shout out a friend of mine, Lauren Topol, who she was a producer at Naughty Dog a long time ago when I was there, and she had been laid off from a previous job for a while. And after the layoff, she reached out to me and we connected, and we hadn't talked for a while, and she was so supportive and so helpful. And so I would say, connect with friends, especially friends that have been through it, to really help give you perspective and give you support. and just, connect with people and yeah, be kind to yourself and know that it wasn't your fault and that you can bounce back. What was the second part of your question or the second question?
Yeah, no, I love that advice, by the way. I think just emphasizing the friendships and the connections. And if you don't have them now, establish them today. So when you go through that, you're not alone and not feeling it. I will say, I think I've touched upon it maybe once or twice during my podcasting, but I ended up finding this cool bar down the road that gives free lessons for line dancing. And I have an entire community of I threw a masquerade with 114 people, rented out this space, invited everyone that I knew. And prior to my layoff, I probably knew 3 people in Boise, people who every time I go out on Wednesdays, I just walk in and I wasn't going for a while. And I was like, I should get out there and go again. So I went out and everyone was like, Dre, oh my gosh, you're back. And I was like, oh, I miss this. I really got to commit to going every week. So that power of your network, that power of having friends, I think is so important. It's beyond just family, right? Have people who love you because they choose you, right? Not because they have to love you. And the second part of my question was really, that's advice for someone who's been impacted by a layoff. But what about the person who's sitting in a company today being like, I don't know, maybe we'll have a layoff in a couple months, maybe in a couple of years, who knows? But what should they do? What types of things would you want to prepare someone with now that you've gone through it? Is that having a crazy amount of savings? Is it budgeting 24/7? Is it making the connections today so you can lean on them, in the future?
It's that last one for sure. That's the first thing that I would tell people to do is, and hopefully they had been doing. First of all of your coworkers, you need to treat with respect and be kind and friendly to them. The person that is working the mailroom could be your boss in 5 years. You never know, right? So your immediate people that you work with, make sure that you have good relationships with them because they may leave and be in another job and can help you out. Your immediate circle of coworkers, establish good relationships with them. And then I would say reconnect with old coworkers or old friends and keep those relationships in, good standing and friendly, because like we were saying, you can really lean on those relationships after a layoff. And so I would first and foremost make sure that your connections are strong, that they're healthy, and people have good sense of you and would recommend you to another job, right? That is ultimately the most helpful thing that they can do. And then also establish new connections. Like you're saying, go out, meet people. LinkedIn is incredible. LinkedIn is an incredible resource to meet people and talk to people and make connections. So I would definitely, use LinkedIn. There's lots of different ways to meet other people, either in your field or in an adjacent field, to just make a lot of great connections. So I would establish a strong network of people that, you can lean on down the road. I think certainly having savings is great, of course. But once if you do get laid off, having those connections to try to get another job or help support in different ways is going to be the key. Of course, savings and money is helpful, but I think the people is the most important thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think having that network, the money is great too. I wasn't going to go back to work, I really wanted to just chill for quite a while. And I pretty much immediately said, what could I cut out of my budget so that my expenses are as small as possible? And that was easy being a single dude, right? And it was cool. I don't have a lot of expenses. But I contemplated, I was like, do I give up my car? Do I get rid of it and then just have more money and then just chill for even longer? I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, I think those are decisions that kind of have to be made. One thing you touched on there was LinkedIn and the power of networking.
Yes.
This is really this is my second to last question. So how would you advise that somebody go about doing that on LinkedIn? I think it's an interesting space right now because so many people are looking for those connections, but they reach out and they're like, can you review my resume right away? And I'm always like, I don't even know who you are. Unless I was offering that, probably not. But if they reach out and they're just like, hey, I saw your podcast, or I saw this post, I'm so much more open to being like, yeah, awesome. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's chat. What's your kind of feedback there on someone random adding you and starting a conversation?
Yeah. Another great question, Dre. You're good. Yeah, I think you don't want to demand somebody you don't know, demand something from them. I think that's a good way to get ignored or whatever. I think just connecting with them, being friendly, trying to find something common that common interests or something to talk about and just say, hey, we know the same people, or hey, I respect your work, or I'm a fan, or whatever it is, and just be friendly and connect and just say hi. And I think that is always nice when someone connects and doesn't want anything from you. That's nice, right? I think you can certainly, people that you follow, leave comments and just be friendly, right? And just engage like any other social media platform, right? Just engage and be friendly and be nice and make jokes and have fun and connect with people and just be chill out, right? And if you are looking for people to review your resume or portfolio, there are people that do that. I think there's resources and ways to find people that will help you out. And there's people certainly on LinkedIn that will be kind and do that for free, or some people charge, right? So I think there's ways to get help with resumes and portfolios whenever. But if someone is not particularly offering that, like you're saying, that people approach you, then that's a way to really kind of, is certainly off-putting. And if you're friendly and have a conversation, you can bring that up later. That's fine. If you have a nice rapport and say, hey, by the way, I'm working on my resume. I could really use a few tips, here, this and that. Oh, cool. Yeah, we're buddies. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look. Much easier than a cold flashbang, LinkedIn message of, look at my resume and help me out. That's, not advisable.
So with that, it's always my favorite last question of the podcast. But if people hear this and they resonate and they're like, wow, this guy's great, or I have questions about how he got through that really tough time and they want to make you cry again.
No.
Some people are going to love that if they're watching the video. By the way, for the people who aren't watching, he did cry. And it's not like funny, but I am so bad. I just had a situation in life, like real life. A girl was like hanging out with me and she was crying. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not the person. Like, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be so supportive, but crying is tough for me. It's like, I don't cry very often. I don't know why. I just don't like the emotion. So I was like trying not to laugh, and like, I wasn't funny, but it's like, I don't know what to do. So I appreciate you being real. For the people who didn't see it, he got very emotional. So now with that, are you open to people connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. 100%. I think having the bigger network you have, the more connections you have, the better, right? What is the cap? 30,000? But I'm not going to hit that.
30,000 connections? No way.
I think so. There's a limit.
And then is it like following at that point? It's like, because people have followers of like millions, right? And like.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not near 30,000 connections. So connect away. Go for it, right?
He's close. He's at 25,000, guys.
So no, I'm happy to connect with people and chat with people on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, an unhealthy amount of time, but it's been, I think, really a really great tool to meet people and chat, and I meet a lot of great people there. So I'm perfectly happy with people connecting with me, and just be nice. If you're going to connect, just be nice. That's all. It's pretty simple.
If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Layoffs are really hard, and starting over is really hard. Building something new is even harder. But what Quentin reminded us of today is this. It's not personal. You are not your job title, and you are allowed to build something that makes you proud. If you're navigating a career pivot, thinking about starting something new, or just trying to stay balanced in the chaos, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to connect with Quentin, he's active on LinkedIn. Just don't lead with review my resume. Start with being human. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. As a reminder, I'm partnering with jobhire.ai. You can use AI to find a job. If you don't get an interview in the first 15 days, you'll get your money back. The way it works is you actually fill out your information one time, you select the jobs you want to apply to, and it applies to jobs on your behalf. You set it, you forget it, and you let the job interviews roll into your inbox. If you want to give it a shot, you can use my code DRAY30, DRAY30 for 30% off.